Hello everyone. In this episode, we're going to break down the first episode of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Jumping right in, the episode is titled A Normal Amount of Rage. As we find out, this is how Jennifer deems the rage she feels when she turns into a Hulk. It's not an over-the-top feeling, it's something she has to constantly feel as a lawyer and as a woman in modern-day society. This is also why she has so much more control of herself compared to Bruce. Like with each new MCU project, the intro has been updated. This time including Jane Foster's mighty Thor from the most recent film, Thor: Love and Thunder. They grow up so fast. Once we see Jennifer Walters for the first time, she's practicing her speech on responsibility. This is not only similar to the "with great power comes great responsibility" line that Spider-Man follows, but is actually the same journey we watch her go through on this episode and probably the next ones. She has to come to terms with her newfound ability and use it along with her law skills to help people. Because, like Bruce said, she's now a superhero. Funny enough, in her office, we can see a book about badass women on her shelf, which she has just become even more of. There's also a lot of PhDs like her cousin Bruce. So being smart does seem to run in the family. Speaking of her office, it's also a nice shade of green, foreshadowing her literally being covered in the same color. Her car is also green, so it's a good thing she already seems to favor that color. The organization she's practicing to go up against is known as GLK&H, which stands for Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. The first three names are from people who have had a big influence on Marvel Comics, who you may recognize. And then we get our first fourth wall break, almost immediately, which gets right into her origins. Her character is widely known for doing this in the comics, even acknowledging she's in a comic book. When we catch up with Bruce, we see the same device he was wearing in the post-credit scene for Shang-Chi. It's now confirmed to be an inhibitor that allows him to stay in his human form, which we all assumed. While eating the Cheetos with chopsticks is not only a smart thing to do, it may also be a reference to actor Oscar Isaac, aka Moon Knight. This is because a pic of him in real life kinda went viral from him doing the same thing. Now, one of the best things about this episode is the constant reoccurring theory about whether or not Steve Rogers' Captain America was a virgin. This is something many fans have wondered about, and they bring up some really good points. But if you stick around for the end credits scene, then you finally got the answer. This fan theory can also be compared to the one about, say, Ant-Man defeating Thanos in a certain way, and the one about Tom Holland's Spider-Man being the kid from Iron Man 2. Since all of these started as just fan theories that were later brought into the MCU. Bruce says that the Sakaar ship that caused their wreck is a message carrier from Sakaar, where he spent years as the Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. This has led to speculation on why it's there, which will hopefully be answered in this series or at least in the final post-credit scene. But for now, the leading theories are, it's there to take the Hulk back, so we can get a Planet Hulk storyline, and wants to take Jennifer as a new champion, or it's going to tell Hulk about a son he didn't know about named Scar, like in the comics. Time was proven to work differently on the planet in Ragnarok, so it's not too far off to think that we could meet a full-grown son of his. Honestly, I'd be down to see any of these theories come true, if not all of them. When Bruce tells Jen to get away before he hulks out, it immediately reminded me of the first Avengers film, when he has to warn Natasha/Black Widow to get away too. And that seems like so long ago now, but that's what it made me think of. After they exchange some blood, Jen races into the woods hulked out, just like we've seen Bruce do many times. Especially waking up without any memories. During these scenes, there's even some green on her outfit, since that is the color their Hulk forms bleed. When she wakes up, we can see a Roxxon gas station. Roxxon is an evil corporation that can be seen popping up all over the MCU's timeline. It goes as far back as the first Iron Man movie, all the way up to the Loki series. As she walks to the bathroom, there's a QR code just like in Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel. Once scanned, this one takes you to a free She-Hulk comic. And speaking of Ms. Marvel, you can see her symbol written on the bathroom wall, which is a little weird considering in the updated timeline, that series actually takes place after this one. But maybe we'll get an answer to that. There's also what appears to be a spider, so maybe that could be for Spider-Man. And that bar girl scene after was just too funny. My girlfriend knew before they even came on screen that they were just going to be awesome and helpful. We come to find out that Tony and Bruce built this retreat together, hence the initials carved into the bar. This means the band shirts, like the Led Zeppelin one, could actually belong to Tony. It could also be seen as a reference to the Immigrant Song that was used a lot for Thor Ragnarok. Inside of the house portion, we can see an Iron Man helmet on display. However, it's not just any helmet, but appears to be the one from the Iron Legion from Avengers Age of Ultron. More specifically, the one Ultron first took over. This could be there as a reminder to never get too deep into your experiments, considering Bruce helped him with the creation of Ultron. Or perhaps Tony and Bruce tried recreating the program now that they know what to avoid. Either way, it's a scary thought. Inside, we can also see the Hulk's fighting helmet he used on Sakaar. And while it wasn't Professor Hulk, we did get the Smart Hulk name confirmed as what Bruce goes by now. He also said he didn't pick it, which is kind of a meta joke, since we the audience are the ones who pick a lot of these names. And at long last, we get to see the lab Bruce used to become the Smart Hulk, which was teased back in Endgame and was basically just left to the imagination. But around the lab, you can see some familiar Stark tech. Even the saw blades are labeled Stark Industries. We all knew it was coming, but we see Hulk heal his arm after appearing to be permanently damaged from his version of the snap. Although they kind of just rush through it and say it's because Jen's blood is different. With that, he quickly disposes the rest of what he studied so no one else can get their hands on it. Like in his solo movie, if anyone gets their blood, it'll either be poisonous or turn them into a Hulk of some kind. When Jen begins to freak out and needs to calm down, Bruce decides to make her pancakes. Similarly, in Thor: Love and Thunder, pancakes were featured as the go-to breakfast item too. The Pixar movie Inside Out is referenced for its horrible scene with Bing Bong, which now confirms the Disney-owned company exists in the MCU. Interestingly enough, Chris Evans did just star as voice actor in their most recent film. So don't think too hard about how it works. I never really thought about it before, but with the way Bruce refers to it, it's a bit funny how Natasha managed to make a lullaby to calm the Hulk down. He also mentions the numerous times he's fallen out of a helicopter, or some kind of ship just like in his first film, and the Avengers, and Thor Ragnarok, and Infinity War. During the sequence, he also mentions a robot has knocked him out before, and the only on-screen instance of this I could think of was when he went up against Iron Man in the Hulkbuster armor, which ended in that fashion. As he tries to understand Jen's new transformation, Bruce mentions having another hand on the wheel, which is the same way he described his split personalities to Thor in Ragnarok. He also brings up that 2-year gap he was on the planet Sakaar. Throughout the episode, there's a lot of differences between the two and how they use their abilities. One thing we see Hulk doing a lot of is meditating and a kind of yoga. Now, while it was a different actor, technically this is the same thing he learned in his first movie when trying to get a grip on the Hulk. And one detail I thought that was pretty cool was the green shine Jen's hair had in her Hulk form. It makes sense that her hair is also just a darker shade of green, or at least has green highlights in it. As part of his Smart Hulk form, I believe Bruce is a bit weaker than if it was, full Hulk. However, after throwing that boulder like that, I'm not so sure he's lost any strength. If he has, he's still insanely strong, and someone is definitely getting hit by that thing. During the training sequence, Bruce pushes Jen off the cliff once she continuously shows him up. This also made me think of the first Avengers film, where the Hulk punched Thor to the side after they basically competed with one another that whole movie. Then they finally gave us the thunderclap from his solo film, with Jen using it as her own version to mimic the sonic cannons made by Stark Industries. Talking about their relationship again, Bruce mentions that Tony often drank and complained about Steve Rogers. And while they've always had this love-hate relationship, the timing of this makes it sound like it was either after Infinity War or at least somewhere around that period of time when they were just no longer in contact. This whole scenario also calls back to what Tony said to Bruce in Avengers Age of Ultron about sipping margaritas on a beach and turning brown instead of green. I never thought about it before, but with the way Jen has to move up the Jeep seat, it's clear that it was positioned for the Smart Hulk form. And whether it was custom made or not, it makes sense that Bruce would prefer to drive around instead of, just jumping from place to place. Another reference to his time on Sakaar could be the green piñata inside of his bar. It's meant to look like the Hulk, and could have been from one of his fans that often carried similar items at his parades or his shows. The episode ends in present time with Jen in the middle of her case. Titania busts in seemingly out of nowhere, which will of course be further explored in future episodes. But for now, I think it's fair to assume that there's a third party that either wanted to expose She-Hulk, or at least stop the case altogether. Then the end credits roll with a courtroom art theme to fit the series. We end up seeing an Avengers mug, Jen holding a green drink at the bar, cheese balls, which we did just see a lot of in I Am Groot, because who doesn't love them? Jen and Bruce inside of a bulk store looking for purple spandex, and a Captain America evidence board based on his virginity. On this board, you can see a picture of him from his USO tour, one of the dancers who accompanied him, Peggy Carter, and a mystery character who could be a potential offspring, Sharon Carter, or the popular theory about a girl he's seen getting a picture taken with in his first film. James Gunn has jokingly said that that woman could be Star-Lord's great-grandmother, considering it's played by the same actress as his mother. So, could this be something confirmed down the line? More of the end credits show Jen reading an Avengers file while having Tinder opened, which we will see more of from the trailers. Her in She-Hulk form weightlifting in what could be half of her sporty uniform, considering the shoes and spandex are similar. And cosplayers dressed up as the Avengers on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Lastly, we get what might be one of the funniest post-credit scenes with Jen pretending to be drunk just to get the answer out of Bruce. As she's pretending, she talks about how nice Cap's backside was, which is a callback to the ongoing joke from Avengers Endgame about America's ass. Bruce finally budges and ends up admitting Cap lost his virginity on the USO tour, which could confirm the evidence board from the credits and how it may be a real thing Jen decided to make afterwards. Then it ends entirely cutting her off halfway through, just like at the end of the Spider-Man films and other MCU instances, just so she can't get the full cuss word out. You could take the way Bruce says it, that Steve is still alive, which makes sense to me because we probably would have seen a funeral otherwise. He's been brought up through a lot of memorials so far, but I still believe he's just retired. And maybe we'll see him again in Secret Invasion or in Captain America New World Order. Overall, I liked the first episode. It got straight into the action and origin of She-Hulk, rather than building it up all season, which was a nice change. The CGI to me looked pretty awesome and great in most scenes. I think She-Hulk looked solid, and they even managed to make Smart Hulk look even more like Mark Ruffalo somehow with what I'm sure was a lower budget. I even laughed quite a bit at some of the humor, like at the up top high five scene. It made me realize I was enjoying the comedic aspect so far. I don't have like high expectations for the show, but I'm definitely down to see what they can throw at us and potentially surprise us with. But what did you think? Did you enjoy the first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law? Comment below your thoughts and if there's anything I missed, because I'd love to hear it. And that's that. See ya.